Clarksville original. Hit after hit after hit. The big 1400 WJZM. Clarksville, Fort Campbell, Hopkinsville. Online at WJZM1400.com.
WJZM Radio, Clarksville, Tennessee.
Fans, it's time to suit up and dive right in to the Saturday Sports Splash, the show that's always making waves. Now, here's your host, Justin Swallows.
Good Saturday morning to you, sports fans, and welcome on into the Splash. As always, I am absolutely honored that you have chosen to kick off your sports weekend with our show. It's another big football weekend. We started it off last night on the high school gridiron. I always like to go through the area scores. Area teams were an even 500, 5-5 last night. Clarksville Academy went up to Kentucky and blew out Fulton City 64-6 in a game you heard right here on the Big 1400. Clarksville High took out Dyer County, another big win for a local squad, 52-27 the final there. 46-19, Northeast took down West Creek High in a game we all expected to be much closer than that. Northeast taking down West Creek and kind of hurting West Creek's claim as the best team in the city. Harpeth High beat Montgomery Central 20-7. Houston County got a big rivalry win last night at Stewart County High, 38-28 the final there. Mount Juliet blanked Northwest 43-0. Henry County got a win over Kenwood 33-14. Trigg County bested Fort Campbell in a tight one 14-7, and Rossview High blew out Dixon County 52-0. The final there, again, area teams 5-5 last night, and we were glad you could be with us for high school football coverage here on the Big 1400 WJZM as we brought you Clarksville Academy football. It's a football Saturday, football Sunday. We'll talk college and NFL football on today's show. As I mentioned, NFL football, I'll tell you that's what we're going to have later on. We'll have Josh Gunnels with us from MusicCityMiracles.com to talk Titans. Tennessee hosting Seattle tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock over at Nissan Stadium. The Titans coming off a big win, a big division win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. They absolutely rolled over them 1 week ago. We'll talk about that later on in the show. At the end of the show today, we're going to get you ready for Austin Peay at Murray State. The Governors have lost 21 straight conference games. They just snapped a 29-game overall losing streak, but they've lost 21 straight conference games as they head to Murray State tonight in a game that'll kick off at 6 o'clock, one you can watch locally on the OVC Digital Network there online. Or better yet, it's not that much of a trip. You can just travel over to Murray. It'll take you about 45 minutes to an hour. It's a beautiful drive, a beautiful day to do it, and hopefully it'll be a beautiful game on the field for the Governors as they try and get their first conference win since they beat Murray State back in October of 2014. It's been a long, long time. And as we talk football, of course, you know, here on the Big 1400, we are your home for all things University of Tennessee. We're the local Vol Network affiliate, and we'll have UT's game against UMass here in just under an hour. That game's set to kick off at 11, so we're your impromptu pregame party for that contest as we take you right up to kickoff. We'll turn it over in plenty of time to get the call from our friend Bob Kessling. But that's where we'll start our show as we get you ready for that contest. The Vols coming off a really tough loss, a heartbreaking loss 1 week ago down in Gainesville, 26-20 against their rivals, the Florida Gators. And on to discuss that and today's game and just really everything UT football, Terry Lambert, kind enough to join us. He is the site manager for RockyTopTalk.com. Terry, how are you today?
Doing good, Justin. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, great to be with you. As always, we love what you guys are doing at RockyTopTalk.com. And I think I've got to start with the obvious. How much, Terry, has the pressure been ratcheted up on Tennessee head coach Butch Jones? His decisions, whether it be not running prevent defense out of a timeout with just seconds left, or twice not handing the ball off to John Kelly inside the 5-yard line, those decisions are obviously bad. And when Coach Jones tries to explain away those mistakes, it seems like things just only get worse. Is there anybody left in his corner at this point?
You know, believe it or not, there are. I was kind of surprised to see that on the site this week. But I think you saw a lot of longtime Butch Jones supporters kind of jump off the ship. Just not running John Kelly down on the goal line, and then the botched defense on the Hail Mary, if you want to call it that. It just adds up, you know, and then you come out Monday morning and you give excuses, and that's not what fans want to hear. You know, they want to hear you own it. You know, that was one of Butch Jones's slogans a couple of years ago, own it. He didn't exactly do that. So His slogan this year is details, accountability, and toughness. Well, he didn't have his backup quarterback ready to go to operate a quarterback sneak that might have ended up costing Tennessee the ball game. So it's just adding up. Like you said, the pressure's really ramping up. And again, losing to Florida is not the end of the world, but you're talking about a Florida team that was down 9 players due to suspension. Tennessee was the better team on the field. They found a way to lose. So it's all adding up, and I think people are just kind of growing tired of the constant excuses and just flat out not getting it done on the football field.
Growing tired is a great way to put it. Terry Lambert is with us this morning. He's the site manager for RockyTopTalk.com. We're talking Tennessee football as the Vols get set to host UMass today. That game will kick off at 11 o'clock. You can hear it right here on the Big 1400 WJZM. We are your impromptu pregame party for that contest today as we take you up to kickoff. Terry, what about the coaching hires for Butch Jones at Tennessee? We've talked at length on this show about how he's already played the let's upgrade the assistants card. That's already been done. How much of an upgrade do you feel like he's been able to get with Larry Scott at offensive coordinator, with Walt Wells as the O-line coach, and with Brady Hoke coaching the defensive front? They brought in a lot of new faces on that staff. How much do you feel like it's helped?
It's hard to say on the field, but I do think it's paying dividends on the recruiting trail. You see Tennessee sitting 6th nationally in the recruiting rankings, depending on where you look. On the field, it's still hard to say. We're just 3 games in. So again, it's hard to evaluate that. But the interesting thing is he had a chance to kind of go a different route with his offense. He had a chance to go after Matt Canada or one of the other big names out there. And he chose to stay in-house with Larry Scott. And, the rumblings around the program have just kind of been, this is Butch's offense. He's not going to change. And that's true. If you just look at the results. Through 3 different offensive coordinators, it really hasn't mattered who's been out there. The offense looks the same to me. And you really don't see too many drastic changes. So I think he had a shot to kind of go a different direction with the offense. But again, the offense wasn't a problem, but Tennessee's flipped a lot of new faces this year, and they've been stagnant so far. So that refusal to kind of go out of house may end up doing Butch in at the end of the year.
He's definitely hard-headed. I feel like a lot of fans would agree that he's got a certain way he's going to do things, and nobody's going to tell him that's not the right way to do it.
Right.
And that could very well be his downfall. We're talking Tennessee football this morning. Terry Lambert with us from RockyTopTalk.com. And, Terry, I want to touch on what I think, and I think you'll agree, is the biggest positive for UT through 3 games, and that is the performance of tailback John Kelly. He's rushed for almost 400 yards so far. He's averaging 6+ yards per carry. Where, in your opinion, if at all, does Kelly belong within the conversation about the best backs in the Southeastern Conference?
I think you've got to put him right up there with Darius Geis, maybe a notch below. You're talking about a guy that just runs angry. Watching him run the football every week is one of my favorite things to do. You just see the explosion. You see the small frame, but he still runs over people. And, he's got the explosion to get away from the secondary when he gets the opportunity to. So, and shout out to this offensive line. We didn't really know what we were going to get. We knew they were talented. We knew they were experienced, but they really hadn't all put it together since Butch has been there. But they're doing some things up front, winning the battle at the line of scrimmage, really opening up some holes for John Kelly. So if you're looking for a positive, that run game really, really, it's humming. Now the passing game is not. And, you'd like to marry those two together, but at least Tennessee has the ability to run the ball, which that's a huge thing in football. So I don't think the bottom will totally fall out on Tennessee this year as long as they continue to run the football, but they've got to address their passing game issues.
I don't think there's any question about that. And as we talk about the passing game, Terry, can we safely put to bed the idea of any quarterback competition there in Knoxville? I mean, the UT coaching staff, they don't even have enough confidence in Jarrett Garantano to let him take an under-center snap. How safe is it to say that other than garbage time against weaker opponents, the job 100% right now belongs to Quentin Normandy?
I think it's pretty safe to say. And I wrote that you could pretty much wrap up the competition after Indiana State. Garantano just didn't look like he had command of the offense. Yeah, and he's still a redshirt freshman, so that's to be expected. But you can't, at the same time, you can't ignore how ineffective Quentin Dormady was for much of the game, really against Georgia Tech and Florida. For 3 quarters, he was inaccurate. He just looks a little slow getting through his reads, and that'll come with experience. But the frustrating thing for me, and I know a lot of fans have brought this up too, is running the read option with Quentin Dormady, a guy who's just not going to give you much of athletic ability. If you're going to do that, Garantano seems like the answer there. And Butch has said he's going to play Garantano today, so I don't think we can totally put it to rest. But at the same time, I don't see any scenario of Garantano really winning the job for the Georgia game. I think Dormady's experience in the offense still is going to keep him with a leg up for most of the year.
Yeah, they just don't seem to have much confidence at all in the redshirt freshman, Jarrett Garantano. Meanwhile, I don't know why they should have a ton of confidence either in Quentin Dormady. He's not exactly been a world beater through these first 3 games, but we'll see what happens today. The Vols hosting UMass. The game will kick off at 11 o'clock. You can hear it right here on the Big 1400. We're talking with Terry Lambert. He's the site manager for RockyTopTalk.com. And, Terry, we talked last week here about the emergence of Marquez Callaway as Tennessee's top wideout. Coming into today, he's got 8 catches for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Several of those 8 catches were absolutely highlight reel material. Has it just taken a while for Callaway to develop? And am I way out of bounds in wondering why he didn't get more opportunities last season? And honestly worrying that if it weren't for Jawan Jennings getting hurt in Game 1, Callaway still might be an unknown commodity.
You're actually absolutely right. And it's a little eye-opening that he only has 8 catches through 3 games. After seeing what he did against Georgia Tech, you're talking about a guy that can just flip the field with a big play. So it's a little interesting to see how Tennessee's going about it, not getting him too many targets. But again, I think it all goes back to the quarterback. And you've got to trust your quarterback to get the ball there. And I just don't think the timing there. I don't think the chemistry is there. If you go back and look at most of Callaway's catches, they've all been, winning one-on-one situations, winning 50-50 balls. That big play against Georgia Tech, he won a jump ball down the field against 2 defenders while getting his hair pulled. So it's just not – passing game just isn't there. The timing is off. There's just no chemistry. And, we can complain about Callaway's targets all we want, but at the same time, this coaching staff has to trust their quarterback, and I just don't think they can do it right now.
Well, I think that's a great point, but at the same time, Marquez Callaway is a weapon that you really wish you could use. He's shown some obvious strength at that position throughout these first 3 games. And speaking of strength, let's flip it, Terry, and talk about weaknesses. Defensively, the Vols are giving up an average of almost 300 yards per game on the ground, and obviously I think that's got a lot to do with them getting blown off the football. What are the main issues, in your opinion, on Tennessee's defensive front? And what, if anything, can be done to fix what, again, I think is arguably the worst unit on the team?
Well, it's hard to say. Georgia Tech, you faced a gimmicky flex bone, and they didn't perform well there. I thought they lined up too far off the ball. They were kind of timid. You didn't see many blitzes. They were just kind of trying to stop the bleeding instead of trying to go be the aggressors. So against Indiana State, you faced another kind of gimmicky offense with a bunch of sweeps out of shotgun. So I thought they performed well enough to win, certainly, against Florida. They gave up the big play and got bailed out by Justin Martin, forcing that fumble in the end zone and causing a touchback. Outside of that play, they were pretty good. And that might be a result of Florida's quarterback not being very good, of them not having all their players. So I don't know. I think we're going to see where Tennessee's at against Georgia. It's still hard to say, and I know we're 3 games in, but still 2 gimmicky offenses and then an offense without all their star power. So we're going to find out who Tennessee is against Georgia, and that'll kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel will be there, so we'll see where this run defense is at, and they're going to need huge games from Khalil McKenzie and Shy Tuttle and all those guys. And already kind of thin at linebackers. They've lost Darren Kirkland for the year, Cortez McDowell probably for the year. So you're going to have some inexperience at linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Terry, as you talk about the linebacker position, I want to ask you about the emergence of Daniel Batuli. He's a mid-state kid who's really getting his first major opportunity this season out on the field. Is he another one of those guys? We talked about Marquez Callaway getting opportunity due to injury. Is Batuli another one of those guys that we might have missed out on were it not for that position of linebacker being a little thin?
I think you would have seen Batuli at some point in the year. There was a lot of buzz around him in camp, and it's obvious. I think it was the first or second play against Georgia Tech. He came screaming towards the sideline and made a huge hit on one of the Tech backs. So I think he's very good. I think it's kind of interesting that they're playing Colton Jumper over him. They play the same position, and the way Tennessee operates is not really a spot where you can get Jumper and Batuli on the field at the same time. They played more linebackers than they usually would against Georgia Tech, so that's why you kind of saw that. But going forward, they really like two linebackers on the field, and Batuli's still behind Jumper. So I think Batuli's probably more talented than Jumper. I feel comfortable saying that, but the staff really likes Jumper's experience. But at the same time, you've got Cortez McDowell, you've got Darren Kirkland out, so today, what I'll be watching is that linebacking core. I want to see how Bob Shoop kind of reshuffles the deck. You've got Elliott Berry, you've got Cortez Sapp also in that mix. So it's kind of an unknown heading into today, but we'll know more heading into Georgia.
Terry, I will want to talk to you about storylines to follow today. But first, I want to go back to what we talked about earlier in terms of the uncertain future for Coach Butch Jones. I know you guys cover a lot of recruiting stuff at RockyTopTalk.com, and I can't help but wonder if that maybe is Coach Jones' saving grace. What are some of the highlights of the growing list of incoming commits, and should it be possible for a great recruiting class to buy a struggling head coach some extra time at that level?
You can't ignore it. You definitely can't ignore it. Butch tore it up this offseason. I think he's got close to a full class. I think he's got one spot left, one scholarship left. And it's obviously anchored by Cade Mays, the 5-star tackle out of Knoxville. And then Greg Emerson out of Jackson, Tennessee, the 5-star defensive end. A lot of defense in this class, a lot of defensive line, which is an area of need for Tennessee. And we've always said Butch Jones' strength is recruiting. We give him credit for getting us out of the Derek Dooley era that Tennessee was down. Tennessee probably had the least amount of talent that they've had since, I don't know, probably the 80s, probably before I was born. Butch, you can only do so much on the recruiting trail, though. You keep seeing these injuries pop up. You keep seeing depth be a concern. So at some point, that recruiting has to become mute. So I don't know. It's interesting. You definitely don't want to lose that 6th-ranked class. But at the same time, I think you can kind of repair some of the relationships by keeping the assistants around if that's the direction you wanted to go.
It'll be interesting to see what happens depending on what takes place on the field this season. And you've done a great job, Terry, making that qualifying statement throughout our conversation here. We only have seen 3 games so far. Anything can happen. It is a long season, and it's probably too early to tell. And as fans, we love to overreact. So I appreciate you continuing to throw that in there. Terry Lambert is our guest. He's the site manager for RockyTopTalk.com. We're talking Vols football this morning here in the Saturday Sports Splash. We're actually your lead-in today to Tennessee football as the Vols will kick off against the Minutemen of UMass at 11 o'clock. And, Terry, that's where we will go next. I want to ask you to do the tough task of selling that game to us. It's another one of those prepaid wins for Tennessee as UMass rolls into town. What are the storylines coming into this one that should keep us interested? Like I said, I know sometimes these kinds of games, they're a hard sell, but what, if anything, should make fans care early today against the Minutemen?
For me, it's Jared Garantano. Seeing what Larry Scott and Butch Jones do with him, how much he plays, they've said they wanted to get him involved in the offense. That's my selling point. That's all I need to hear. Because, like I've said, I think the Tennessee Volunteers are struggling at the quarterback position. So inserting him into the lineup, getting some more athleticism into the lineup is going to be interesting. UMass is 0-4, but they've played 4 close games. They shouldn't hang with Tennessee, but they've got one of the better passing attacks in the country. Andrew Ford has his 4th most yards in the country right now. They've got plenty of receivers. They spread the ball around. So it's going to be a task for Tennessee's pass rush. It's going to be a test for the secondary. And again, they haven't been tested in the secondary really this year, outside of that one play against Florida where they failed miserably. But it's going to be a test for Tennessee to try and stop that pass. But Jerry Garantano is the selling point for me.
We'll see what happens. The Vols kick off today against UMass at 11 o'clock. We'll have it right here on the Big 1400 WJZM. You're listening to the Saturday Sports Splash. Terry Lambert, our guest this morning from RockyTopTalk.com. And Terry, we greatly appreciate you joining us on a game day. I've got one final question for you, and it kind of goes against everything you've been talking about. You keep qualifying that we've only seen 3 games so far. You keep saying that it's too early to tell. But at this point, you have seen 3 games, and to some extent, that's a good sample size to judge based upon. So what do you think about how the Vols are going to fare throughout the course of this 2017 season? Are they destined for 7 to 8 wins again, or could things get much worse as the pressure kind of starts to rise in year 5 of the Butch Jones era?
My honest opinion is 6 or 7 wins, and 7 might be optimistic. To me, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, still left on the schedule. I think we can all count those as losses. I know LSU didn't have a good showing last week. But then you talk about South Carolina, Vanderbilt, who am I missing? Kentucky. Those are 3 gimme wins in usually Tennessee's schedule, but I don't think you can count those either. So you're talking about 3 probable losses and then 3 coin tosses. Butch Jones is going to he might have to win a game he should to get to 7 wins. But I think Tennessee's probably destined for 6 or 7 wins and something like a Liberty Bowl appearance. And is that going to be enough to have John Curry say, we've had enough? I don't know. It's been reported that his buyout and getting the whole staff out of there would cost between $11 and $13 million. So I don't know how you go into the following season having the fan base be so down on this coaching staff. So I think Butch needs to get to 7 to feel good. I think 8 would definitely keep him here, but I don't know if he can get to 8 wins.
We all hope he turns it around. We've got our fingers crossed, Terry, and we know we're always winners when we can get you on the show. We appreciate you joining us today, my man.
All right, thanks for having me.
Terry Lambert, the site manager for RockyTopTalk.com and a friend of the Saturday Sports Splash. Always good to talk to him, especially on a game day. He's on his way into the stadium there in Knoxville as the Vols get set to take on UMass this afternoon. It's 11. I say afternoon. It's really a morning kickoff. They'll do it at 11 o'clock this morning, and you can hear it right here on the Big 1400 WJZM. We'll be out of here in plenty of time. We'll make sure we get you to our friend Bob Kessling and the folks with the Vol Network, if I can spit that out. It's an exciting morning, and you don't usually get morning football, so that's a good opportunity for you to kick off your day with our show and lead right in to the Vols game today as UT hosts UMass. 11 o'clock, they kick off right here on the Big 1400. We're going to talk more college football later on in the show as we get you set for tonight's APSU against Murray State game. You can watch that locally on the OVC Digital Network online. We'll talk to Austin Peay offensive coordinator Wes Satterfield to round out the show. But next, we're going to take you to the professional ranks. The men, they play on Sundays, and the Titans have got a true test tomorrow as they host the Seattle Seahawks. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff at Nissan Stadium. We'll get you set for that right after this as Josh Gunnels joins us from MusicCityMiracles.com here on the Saturday Sports Splash.
Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. It's your car. It's your voice. Jackson's Body Shop, the best choice. Dents, dings, major body repair. A pre-loaner car, 'cause we really care. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Call 647-6989 or Jackson's.
Made to order, never frozen Midwest beef served on a toasted buttery bun is just the beginning at Culver's of Clarksville. The experience crescendos into fresh homemade custard, that you can customize into delectable treats like sundaes, banana splits, or one of their signature concrete mixers. You'll be treated like family and fed like royalty at Culver's of Clarksville, near Exit 4 just off Wilma Rudolph Boulevard at 140 Southampton Place. Culver's of Clarksville. Welcome to Delicious. There's finally a stress-free, no-risk way to buy a new mattress thanks to Beds Express. With their Triple Z guarantee, there's literally no way you can go wrong. Don't waste another night tossing and turning on your old, worn-out bed. Dive into affordable comfort at Beds Express in Clarksville at 1767 Wilma Rudolph Boulevard, Bellevue at 7643 Highway 70 South, and in Murfreesboro at 2222 Medical Center Parkway. Beds Express, Middle Tennessee's better sleep solution.
Looking to catch the big game with a group of friends? Do it O'Neill style. Want to see a great live band rock the stage? Do it O'Neill style. Hungry for a great meal or just thirsty for an icy cold draft beer? Get them O'Neill style at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, a genuinely great American sports bar. They've got wall-to-wall TVs, huge selections behind the bar, and a menu that obliterates the average pub fare. Clarksville's best times take place at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, located at 1979 Madison Street in Midtown.
WJZM Radio, Clarksville, Tennessee.
Tennessee Titans. The Titans are coming off a huge win a week ago to open up divisional play. They blew out Jacksonville down in the Sunshine State and gave us all a ton of confidence. I've been careful not to overreact. After week one, the Titans had a tough loss against the Oakland Raiders at home, and I didn't want to overreact then, so I've had to stick to that and not overreact after a resounding win over what could be the top team in the division in the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk Titans now as Josh Gunnels joins us from MusicCityMiracles.com. Josh, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Justin. How are you guys doing?
We're doing awesome, and it's great to be with you. And it's hard for us not to get overly excited about the Titans after what they did last week to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's start, though, with the running back position. We're hearing that DeMarco Murray may be out or at least limited with a hamstring injury for tomorrow's game against Seattle. Is he really all that injured, do you think, or are the Titans just playing things up a little bit to get Derrick Henry more opportunities?
You know, I got to go with the injured route. I think he held out, didn't hold out. He sat out almost the entire preseason. I think he ran a little bit in that last game. I think he had a hamstring issue then that they talked about, some tightness, et cetera. And at first I thought it was maybe just a stout Oakland defense that we weren't expecting to be stout, especially on the front line, maybe not having the room that he used to have to run. And, shaking off the off-season cobwebs. But I think you could tell in that Jacksonville game he really didn't have – I don't know if it was not being as decisive as normal. He really just didn't have that pop when he decided to cut or when he decided to shoot up a gap. Or, I really don't think he looks like himself, or at least not the type of runner he was last year.
Do you think maybe he's overextending himself a little bit trying to get back because he knows that Derrick Henry is waiting in the wings to, for lack of a better way to put it, take his job?
Yeah, and I think that could backfire on him, honestly, because if he plays hurt, he's not 100%, let's say he's at 80%, and he's not that effective, that just makes him look a little worse in comparison to Derrick Henry than just saying, look, I'm hurt, I need to get right, let Henry carry the load for the near term, and then come back strong whenever he needs to come back.
We're talking Titans this morning here in the Saturday Sports Splash. Josh Gunnels with us from MusicCityMiracles.com. The men in two-tone blue hosting the Seattle Seahawks tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock kickoff. You can watch it locally on Fox, or you can just head to Nissan Stadium and be a part of the action. Josh, Marcus Mariota threw for 215 yards and a touchdown last week at Jacksonville, but he also threw an early interception. There's no doubt Marcus has got an incredible skill set, and he's bounced back extremely well from that broken leg. Is it fair, though, to still at times question his decision-making ability? To what extent would you agree that sometimes Marcus is almost overconfident in terms of how accurate he feels like he can be?
Like, where are you allowed to draw the line on how critical you can be? I guess that depends on, like, what standards you hold him to. He is just entering his third year. And, quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. That was a bad look. It looked like he tried to force something in there that couldn't possibly get in there. But at the same time, all those tight window, no-look passes are the ones that, go round and round on the internet that everyone raves about, and that's why you love him. So you're going to have to take a little bit of the bad with the good. Even the best quarterbacks ever, still throw picks during the year. So, I don't think that he is I don't think it's like a glaring issue that we need to worry about and question. If he turns into, 21 picks a year quarterback, then you can start having an issue with it. But, right now, I would take the good that comes with that versus the little bit of bad.
You wonder, too, how the coaching staff handles him. You don't want him to be a guy that second-guesses himself, but at the same time, you don't want him to make bad decisions. What's the right way, do you think, for the coaching staff in working with him to kind of toe that line?
Geez, I don't know. If I knew the answer to that, then I'd probably be an NFL coach. That's a hard thing to do, right? And that's something that people are going to nitpick about. I think he came from, a spread offense, quick reads, shouldering the load for the majority of an offense on your team to, hey, keep calm, learn to throw it away, learn to live for the next down. We're going to keep us in the games. We're going to keep it close. We're going to run the ball a lot. And I think he's made the transition fairly well. I think that whatever the coaching staff is doing with him, I think it's working, honestly.
No doubt.
I think. Go ahead.
I agree. I was just echoing those sentiments. Josh Gunnell's with us this morning from MusicCityMiracles.com. We're talking about your Tennessee Titans. They're 1-1 on the season, coming off a big win down in Florida against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Josh, tight end Delanie Walker, he continues to solidify his status as Marcus Mariota's favorite target. He led the team in Week 2. He had 4 catches for 61 yards. Going into tomorrow, Walker's just 49 yards shy of being the 8th active tight end with over 5,000 career receiving yards. Where does he belong, you think, if at all, in the conversation about the league's best in that position?
Oh, right now I think he's definitely among the league's best, especially, and not just looking at stats, but if you just really look what he does for the team, what he does in the run game, and how much attention he garners on the field. The Titans had 0 passing threats last year outside of Rashard Matthews. And Delanie Walker was getting double and even triple teamed. A lot of zone coverage shaded his way, linebackers all over him, safeties coming down, running with him. And he was still able to do what he did. I really don't think the Titans even knew what they were getting when they signed him away from the 49ers. I definitely don't think the 49ers knew what he could be because he was playing second fiddle to a more athletic receiver type in Vernon Davis at the time. So he was looked at more of a run blocker end of line tight end. And, he had drop issues, but it was only getting passed to 25 times a year or something, 30 passes, 30 catches a year, something very, very small numbers. But, he's awesome. He is a big part to the way the Titans run their offense and are able to move the ball. And if he goes down, that's a bigger issue probably than anyone else on the offense outside of Mariota.
Yeah, we don't even want to talk about Delanie Walker not being a part of the equation for the Tennessee Titans. He's a huge part of what they want to do week in and week out offensively. We're talking Titans football this morning. Josh Gunnell's joining us from MusicCityMiracles.com here in the Saturday Sports Splash. And Josh, we started off talking about hamstring injuries with DeMarco Murray. Corey Davis, the rookie wideout, dealing with one as well. How concerned should we be about that? That was something that plagued him throughout the preseason. He's dealing with it again now. We're hearing he probably will not play tomorrow. What are the odds that injury, and I know hamstring injuries can vary in terms of severity, but what do you think the odds are that injury ruins Corey Davis's rookie season?
I think the odds that it ruins his season correlate right in line with how much he rushes to get back on the field. I think those hamstring injuries are the ones you've got to let it heal, feel like you're good, and then wait another week. To give it a little bit of extra time, because if you go push it, all it takes is one little burst push off a little too hard one way, and it tears it right back open. So I don't know. I mean, if he needs to take a couple weeks out and come back, I think he could get caught right back up to speed pretty quick. I mean, we saw what happened in the Raiders game with him missing virtually the entire preseason, and he looked like a really good NFL pro. There was a little bit of miscommunication issues from lack of reps with Mariota. You know, Mariota's throwing out, he turns in type of thing, but I don't really see the time off hurting him much as long as he's fully healthy. And as far as how long that lingers, I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's much of a learning curve there. So he doesn't need the time on the field in order to be, as you said, up to speed. I think he's got what he needs in terms of knowledge of the game, in terms of knowledge of the offense, and I think he just needs to take the time and get better as well. Josh Gunnell's with us this morning from MusicCityMiracles.com as we talk Titans football here in the Saturday Sports Splash. The Titans hosting the Seattle Seahawks tomorrow. It's a late kickoff, 3 o'clock kickoff inside Nissan Stadium. Josh, let's talk about the defense. That was a major point, I think, a point of emphasis in the offseason for the Titans front office, especially that defensive backfield. They forced a couple of turnovers, had a couple of picks last week against Jacksonville. With all the tweaking that was done, specifically to the defensive backfield, how much better do you feel like they are this season versus last?
Yeah, I would say they're going to be better than last year, but I still don't know if we have, like, world-beater defensive talent back there right now. I think Adoree Jackson has impressed beyond expectation at this point. I think there was a lot of, okay, this guy's a glorified punt returner, kick returner, nickelback, and I think he's shown early on against some pretty good talent he can hold his own against NFL wide receivers, and that's a big thumbs up. I think Logan Ryan's a good piece. And I didn't think Sims played that bad last year, honestly. I think the truth's going to be somewhere in the middle of the last two games. I think the Raiders are really good. I don't think the Titans necessarily played that bad. I just think the Raiders are really good. You know, Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree. And I think Jacksonville is Jacksonville. And I think the big difference in the defense is I don't think the defense played better or worse this game. I think they just faced two opposite end of the spectrum's quarterbacks. I think Blake Bortles made a lot of bad passes, couldn't keep drives alive, threw some interceptions, and that's the difference in the game, which made it look like a blowout when I don't think they really played that differently.
Well, let's move forward. Let's look at what's going to take place tomorrow afternoon inside Nissan Stadium. What are the major challenges you feel tomorrow going into that game against Seattle? I know it's a different time slot, and I know it's an unfamiliar opponent. You know, you don't see the Seattle Seahawks that often as a team in the AFC South. What are your major concerns for the Titans going into tomorrow?
If I had one major concern, it would be making sure everyone stays patient and sticks to the run game, even if you're down 10, 14 points at some point. I think that's the biggest issue that I took away from the Raiders game. I think they got out of what they wanted to do too quick, and I think with Jacksonville, they stayed in it. They stayed doing what they want to do and set the tone, set the tempo, and it paid dividends in the second half. And I think that's the biggest thing they need to do against Seattle. I could see the game unfolding the same way, very close, exchanging of field goals first half. The defense you're facing is basically the same as the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. So, that'd be me. Stay patient, stick to the run game. That'd be my biggest concern is if they get out of their game plan too quick for some reason.
You know, we're not one of those shows where we always try to argue. It seems like when you watch sports talk shows on TV or listen to some of the nationally syndicated stuff, there's always an argument. I have zero argument with you this morning.
Right?
Yeah, I guess that's the popular thing. But I have zero argument with you this morning, Josh. I appreciate you being with us. I appreciate everything you've had to say. And I couldn't agree more about the Titans' run game. To me, their success as a team starts and ends with the success they have with that ground attack. And I think they've got to stick with it no matter what as well. And we'll stick with you as a guest, man. You've been absolutely great. We'll do it again sometime, Josh.
Absolutely. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you, sir. Josh Gunnels.
Thank you.
kind enough to join us from MusicCityMiracles.com as we talk Titans here in the Saturday Sports Splash. The Titans will take on the Seattle Seahawks tomorrow afternoon at 3 inside Nissan Stadium. Yours truly will be in attendance. I'm looking forward to it. My first Titans game of the year. But before that, I've got a trip to make tonight. I'm going to be following my favorite college football team. I'll be following the Governors of Austin Peay State University up to Murray State as they try and snap a 21-game conference losing streak. Tonight, we all hope is the night as they take on the Murray State Racers. We'll get you set for that contest next as we talk to the Govs offensive coordinator, Wes Satterfield. Will be with us right after this here in the Saturday Sports Splash.
Family outings should be special. They should be memorable. They should be fun. And you'll find all of that and more with a short trip to Culver's of Clarksville. With a focus on customer service and quality farm-fresh ingredients, Culver's is serving food and fun at a whole new level. Go by today for one of their made-to-order butter burgers or a waffle cone stuffed with fresh frozen custard. They're at 140 Southampton Place, just off Wilma Rudolph Boulevard, Culver's of Clarksville. Welcome to Delicious.
How did you sleep last night? Did you wake up sore or worse yet, still feeling tired? Say goodbye to that constant state of drowsiness with one quick trip to Beds Express. They're fighting sleepless nights one bed at a time, and they're doing so with a trusted staff of comfort experts trained to get you a good night's rest at an affordable price. Go see them at 1767 Wilma Rudolph Boulevard in Clarksville, 7643 Highway 70 South in Bellevue, or at 2222 Medical Center Parkway in Murfreesboro. Visit Beds Express today and sleep well tonight.
Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. It's your car, it's your voice. Jackson's Body Shop, the best choice. Dents, dings, major body repair. A pre-loaner car, 'cause we really care. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Call 647-6989 or Jackson's.
Looking to catch the big game with a group of friends? Do it O'Neill style. Want to see a great live band rock the stage? Do it O'Neill style. Hungry for a great meal or just thirsty for an icy cold draft beer? Get them O'Neill style at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, a genuinely great American sports bar. They've got wall-to-wall TVs, huge selections behind the bar, and a menu that obliterates the average pub fare. Clarksville's best times take place at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, located at 1979 Madison Street in Midtown.
WJZM Radio, Clarksville, Tennessee.
Your Austin Peay State University Governors are trying to snap a 21-game conference losing streak tonight as they head to Murray State University. They'll take on the Racers tonight at 6. You can watch the game locally online at the OVC Digital Network. But why do that? It's a short trip. Make the trip, follow the Governors, and be a part of the action tonight. Our next guest will be a huge part of it, and we appreciate him taking time out on a game day to be with us. Austin Peay offensive coordinator Wes Satterfield on the line. Coach, how you doing today? Coach Satterfield was on the line. We thought he was on the line with us. Coach, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We appreciate you joining us this morning. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
We're doing great, and we appreciate you taking time out to be with us. Your sophomore quarterback, Javon Craig, he's the reigning OVC Offensive Player of the Week as you head up to Murray. Tonight, he's rushed for 183 yards and 5 touchdowns, also thrown for 216 yards and a score in 3 games this season, as well as Javon's played. What is the thought process, Coach, behind asking him to split time with the freshman Jeremiah Oatsfall? And at any point, could it be possible for either Craig or Oatsfall this season to secure a more traditional starting role?
Well, I think right now we're trying to play both of them. Jeremiah is a very good quarterback, as is Javon. Javon's our starter, but we run the quarterback a lot, and our thought process is to get both of them reps, in case one of them was to go down. And also they do have a different style to each of their games. And I think that can help us as far as the defense trying to prepare for both those quarterbacks.
No doubt. You set an OVC record, Coach, last week for rushing touchdowns with 10. And through 3 games, your team's averaged almost 300 rushing yards per outing. Obviously, you've got a solid offensive line and almost an embarrassment of riches at the running back position. But how confident are you that when opponents sell out on taking away that impressive run game, you guys are going to be able to have some sustained success through the air?
Well, we've been working on the passing game and stuff, and Javon's a more capable, very capable thrower. He threw for 5 touchdowns against Tennessee State last year in a game, and I think that shows up on tape as well. We want to establish the run game, and we talk to our receivers all the time. At some point in time, we're going to need them to come through and help us in the passing game and take over a game and make some big plays and help us win the game. So we talk to them constantly about being ready when their number's called, and when we throw the ball, we want to have a high completion percentage, and we want to break off some chunks if we can do that at the same time.
We're getting you set for Austin Peay versus Murray State on the gridiron tonight. The Govs offensive coordinator, Wes Satterfield, kind enough to be here with us this morning. Coach, I mentioned the depth you have in that running back room. How difficult is it for you as the offensive coordinator to decide who gets opportunities and when they get them? You got Kentel Williams, who was really your bell cow back late last season, but you've also got Prince Mamadou, who recently earned a scholarship. You've got the Illinois transfer, Trey Nation, who's done some good things for you. You've got the freshman, Ahmad Tanner, who coming through these first few weeks, I think has looked like maybe your best option. Does fairness come into play, or do you feel like it's situational in terms of what each back kind of brings to the table?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit on all of them right there, and I think they all have a different strength. Kentel was a receiver that moved to the backfield. He catches the ball very well out of the backfield. And he's kind of a hybrid type back. I guess you would say like the Chris Johnson of Arizona or something like that. And then Ahmad is a true freshman who's a bigger back, and Prince is a bigger back who plays some fullback and can do multiple things. And like I said, Trey Nation comes in there and does some good nice things. So you got four guys back there that you can kind of throw in at any point in time, and I think they can share the load and help keep each other healthy, and then also play off their strengths a little bit at the same time.
Coach Wes Satterfield, our guest this morning, as we get you set for Austin Peay at Murray State tonight. The Governors trying to win back-to-back games for the first time in a long time, trying to snap a 21-game conference losing streak as they take on the Racers. Coach Satterfield, I whizzed by it a moment ago, but I want to go back to the depth and maturity on your offensive line. That position for years was a point of concern at Austin Peay. What has it taken to turn that unit into one that right now statistically is the best in the OVC?
Well, they signed about 4 or 5 guys that came in together as freshmen a couple of years ago, and they've kind of gelled together and played a lot of football together. We have 7 guys who we feel right now, 7 to 8 guys who can play at any point in time during the game for us. Some of the guys were starters at one point last year, and we've added some guys from different places that came in and kind of gave us a boost here and there. And I think those 5 to 7 guys are really gelling together right now and coming together as a unit. And I think most of them will be back for next season as well.
Coach, we talked about the success you guys have had on the ground, but as we go back to kind of the question marks surrounding your team's ability to have sustained success through the air, where's your level of trust at right now with your receiving core? You've only got one wideout with over 100 receiving yards through these first 3 weeks. Who are the young men you really feel have emerged as leaders within that group?
Well, I think it starts with Kyron Moore, number 4. He's our slot receiver. He's a senior. He started his career playing some defense, came over to us as a receiver last year, had a pretty good season. We use him on some jet sweeps and those types of things. So he touches the ball in a variety of ways. He's also a kick returner. And DJ Montgomery is a transfer that came in, and he starts for us. He's a bigger, physical guy that has a great upside. And then Kadeem Gilborn is another receiver who's a taller target. Playing over the course of a couple of weeks, I think some teams have done things to try to take our receivers away by, pressing them and those types of things. So we have to be smart when we try to throw the ball and what we're trying to do. Burrell Samare was a redshirt freshman, and Terrius Callahan were redshirt freshmen last year that have come in and contributed pretty well. So we're pretty pleased with that unit. Josh Alexander provides some depth right there as a true sophomore as well, and I think he's gotten a lot better since last year too. So I think we got 5 or 6 guys that can go into a game, similar to our offensive line. You feel pretty good about all of them play.
I would like, if you don't mind, to get a behind-the-scenes look at what you guys do on game days in terms of play calling and the play calling process? I know you've got a former quarterback as your head coach who I doubt is hands off with the offense, and I know you've got a former head coach as your offensive line coach and run game coordinator. What does that decision-making process look like from play to play? Are you completely autonomous on game day using input from throughout the week, or are you getting some live feedback throughout each game?
No, I think one of the things that we do very well between our coaching staff is communicate. We'll sit there, we'll devise a plan throughout the week. We'll have our game plan, and then plan A, I would so to say. And, if plan A isn't working, what are we going to do with plan B? What are our counters off of this? What can we do to change things up? And if they play this, how are we going to respond? And then, we take the first couple of series and try to fill out the defense, give them a bunch of formations and see how they're playing those and how their adjustments are going to be. And then we talk in between and see what we want to come back with and kind of adjust from there. I think we do a good job communicating with our own offensive staff.
Well, we're excited today to be communicating with you. Austin Peay offensive coordinator Wes Satterfield, kind enough to join us on a game day here in the Saturday Sports Splash as the Governors get set to head to Murray State for a big OVC battle tonight. First conference game of the season for the Govs. Coach Satterfield, I always like to ask at least a question or two about the team's mentality. Confidence, I don't think I'm wrong in assuming it, is probably pretty high around your program after taking two FBS teams down to the wire and blowing out your first FCS opponent. As a coaching staff, how do you guys walk that line between promoting a healthy level of confidence and swagger, but also making sure your team stays focused and grounded?
Well, I mean, like you said, there is a fine line between that. You want to make sure that they first and foremost feel confident that they can win the game versus anybody. I think we walked into Cincinnati and thought that we could compete. And I think that we got out there and, midway through the fourth quarter, it's a one-score game. And I think our kids were like, hey, we can do this. And we didn't play our best game offensively versus Miami, Ohio. I think they were extremely confident coming back home last week. I think they benefited from the crowd a little bit. Winning that game gave us a little boost, I think. And, and now we're trying to, find out who we are as far as how we're going to respond when we win. How confident can we be, but also be respectful of our opponent and make sure that we're very well prepared to know what we're doing when we walk in the game.
Well, I want to talk about your opponent tonight, but first, we mentioned earlier you've got two young quarterbacks alternating control of your offense. How much, in terms of the playbook, are you still installing? Do you try to put things in week to week based on the opponent, or at this point, has everything you want to do already been introduced?
Well, I think throughout the fall training camp, you try to get everything that you can basically foresee yourself doing introduced at least. We spend a lot more time on our basis of what we're trying to do, but install and touch on the things that we're trying to that we might use during the game week throughout the season. And then you're kind of just coming back and seeing what the other team does well and what their defensive strengths are, and you try to pull the plays and the concepts that you're trying to use from fall camp that you do well, and you just keep trying to pull from that and tailor that for your own individual game plan for that particular game.
Austin Peay offensive coordinator Wes Satterfield, kind enough to be our guest this morning on a game day. The Governors headed to Murray State tonight for a 6 o'clock kickoff against their OVC rival. You can watch it locally online on the OVC Digital Network, but you can also just follow the Ghost of the game. It's just right at an hour, maybe less than an hour trip up to Murray State, and a beautiful drive, beautiful day to do it, so why not follow the Governors and be a part of the action this afternoon. Coaches, as we finish up, and again, I can't say thank you to you enough for joining us on a game day, but we're all interested in the scouting report on Murray State. Your offense was only able to muster 17 points against them last season. As you head into Racer Country today, what do you feel like your team will do better than they did last year when you faced off against Murray State?
Murray's a tough opponent. They do a lot of things defensively. We've got to communicate very well throughout our offensive line and throughout our perimeter, and I think they try to mix it up on you. They're a heavy blitz team, so we've got to sustain some drives to stay on the field and keep the ball away from their explosive offense, because they're no huddle up tempo type team that can put up some points on you. Last year we came out and at times we executed pretty well, and at times that we didn't. We got stopped on a 4th and 2, I think, inside the 5-yard line, for that would have cut it to a one-score game in the fourth quarter and didn't get it done. So we're talking about, staying on the field, sustaining drives, scoring when we get an opportunity to in the red zone, and then trying to keep our defense off the field so they don't have to go up tempo all day long.
Well, Coach, we'll be there supporting you. We hope you guys can pull out the big W tonight. We're behind you every step of the way, and we wish you the very best of luck. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Austin Peay offensive coordinator Wes Satterfield, kind enough to join us. I love that the Austin Peay football coaching staff, ever since they got here, ever since Coach Healy and company took over, they have been so open to being a part of our show on game day. That used to never be the case with Austin Peay football back in the day. They never wanted to do anything on game day. They were trying to focus on the task at hand. And I understand that to some point, but it is so great for us as fans to be able to hear from the staff on a weekly basis. We appreciate Coach Satterfield joining us this week. Coach Healy was with us last week, and I'm sure we'll talk to someone from the Austin Peay staff next week as well as the Govs get set to host UT Martin. We won't look ahead, though. Tonight's game against Murray State of paramount importance, and we hope you'll follow the Govs. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff tonight at Roy Stewart Stadium there in Murray. I know some of us APSU fans, we don't like to spend too much time in Murray, but tonight it'll be worth it, we hope. We've got our fingers crossed. Speaking of being worth it, the payoff of today's show, the University of Tennessee against UMass game. We're your lead-in, and it is time to turn it over to the Vol Radio Network. Our friend Bob Kessling and Tim Priest, after kind of a tough week on the mic a week ago, they're standing by and ready to take it over as the Vols will take on UMass here on the Big 1400. We appreciate you putting up with our show today as the lead-in to that contest. Until next Saturday at 10 o'clock, for all of our fine sponsors who help make it all possible. We could not do it without them. A huge thank you to Jackson's Body Shop. A big thanks as well, of course, to O'Neill's Bar and Grill. Thank you to Culver's of Clarksville. And also thanks to our friends over at Beds Express. Speaking of Beds Express, on October the 7th, we're going to be live out at Beds Express. We look forward to that. We'll have some Austin Peay football tickets to give away. Austin Peay will be hosting Jacksonville State that day, and we'll be giving away tickets. We'll be doing all kinds of fun stuff. They'll have things to give away at Beds Express as well, pillows, mattress protectors, you name it. It'll be a good time. We'll be live out at Beds Express to do our show on October the 7th. We'll be back here in the studio 1 week from today. Until then, for everybody who got in on our show, including our incredible executive producer, John Michaels, the man behind the scenes, making it all work. We'll do it again 1 week from now. Until then, I'm Justin Swallows saying so long, folks.